There's a brand new hideout zone coming into Escape from Tarkov, but there might not be the one that we actually could have had. And so, with that being said, I want to talk about some of the zones that could be cool to see in the future, alongside giving you an overview of what this new zone actually is, at least from what we know so far from the picture shared by Battlestate themselves. So, with that being said, it is the Circle of Sacrifice. What looked like you input 5 total items into the Circle of Sacrifice. It probably sits there for a while and then it will give you a reward back for the Circle of Sacrifice. Now, whether that reward is items within the game or a percentage bonus to some of your statistics within the game, we're not entirely sure as of this moment in time. Probably is going to be some form of item receival, much like you would see with, for example, the Scav junk box. Now, whether or not that is entirely true is yet to be known, and of course that may change over the future when it does finally come into the game. But given the current development cycle of kind of when they reveal this information on how things are going to change and that sort of stuff, well, that is usually within about a month or so, maybe slightly longer until we actually see that. And given the roadmap, it should be probably in the region of about a month or so till we actually see these things come into the game. Now, this new hideout is something what I would call a missed opportunity to bring in something new to the game that we haven't really seen, at least so far, in the hideout. And there's lots of things that we could see within the hideout itself that isn't just a kind of it's copy and paste of a different kind of mechanic that we already have in the game. I mean, for example, Scav case, seeing this looks similar, except you put in multiple items, you get some form of reward. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not particularly novel, and it's not necessarily the thing that I would have liked to have seen as the hideout zone that we get as part of the new update that will be coming to Tarkov. And although I'm not against them bringing in hideout items that are similar to what this is, it isn't exactly what I think could potentially be cool for people to use. And so when it comes to that, I'll be interested to see what you guys actually think. What would you implement as a new hideout zone? What kind of ideas do you have? Because at the end of the day, I'm just one player. Whether I make content or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just my own views. I'm not trying to say that this is the best or the worst, or that what they brought in is terrible or the best thing that they could have ever brought in. I don't think one person can make that assumption, so I'm not trying to do that. But I'd be interested to see what you guys think, so at least I know the sort of overview as to what you guys believe could be cool to come into the game. Now, one thing that I've been finding with Escape from Tarkov is that currently we have no real way of getting weapon attachments and weapon items, whether that be through crafting or, you know, being able to buy them off of the barter trades and that sort of stuff is really the only way to actually get them in the game or find them on people in the raid. It would be cool to have some form of kind of weapon bench so that you can craft your various different components that you can then use within the game itself. So whether you want to craft certain items or stuff like that, it could be cool to do that. Whether you were to transfer in some weapon components in order to make a better weapon component, that would be really, really cool to see. And in addition to that, some form of being able to kind of craft and boost those weapon attachments would be nice to have as well. That would be something that maybe you would use with some of the other skills that are already currently in the game, like the weapon maintenance, this sort of stuff. It could be kind of correlated to how that actually works in the game, whether you could, you know, have these slight improvements that you can make to certain weapons and that sort of stuff. I feel could be kind of cool to have in the game as a additional kind of hideout zone that you can use in the future, where you can make the sort of weapons that maybe you want to use and make them slightly better than if you were to just buy them or find them in a barter trade, like kind of leveling system for each of the components. Not a huge overhaul, I mean just that maybe you get an increased percentage bonus on each of them. It could be very minuscule, but it could be something to work towards. Of course, that would affect the whole meta within the game and having different components, so whether it would affect the balancing issues within the core game, or whether it could just simply be that you can craft some of the higher tier weapon components components for quite a few resources that maybe aren't used as much within the game. Things like weapon parts, not really used a whole lot other than for some of the quests and as things that you turn in for daily quests, that sort of stuff, really isn't used a whole lot. So having something like that whereby you could dismantle weapons and get yourself some kind of exclusive item that can then be used for trading in for weapon components would be really cool to see. And I think that would be a nice system to have in addition to what we've already got as the hideout items in the game. Now, that isn't the only thing. Obviously, there is a ton of different things that could come into the game as a hideout zone in the future. And of course, as Tarkov develops and becomes a better game overall, hopefully, we may see these sorts of things come in. And the hideout actually expand further and further to the point where there's a lot more to do within the hideout. As you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a great place to get yourself some a weapon component or at least ammunition for your weapons, but there's no real way of actually getting the weapon components that you want. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was a different zone that maybe we haven't really seen anything like it. And what I mean by this is that we have, for example, the fence rep. Now, fence rep is useful for a variety of different reasons, but once you get past your 6 fence rep, which is the maximum kind of fence rep that you can get that gives any real bonuses, and past that it's just increasing and that sort of thing. Now, it would be great if we could get some form of hideout zone that maybe you have to get max fence rep, and then you can do some form of like scav management. And this seems like a bit of a weird thing, but I'm not talking about that it's going to affect the actual gameplay in the game. You're not going to be able to stop scavs from attacking you, that sort of thing. I don't think that that would be a good change for the actual game itself, but more so that you could maybe have your own sort of scav like missionaries that you can use to send off and complete certain contracts for defense, which are essentially like a little zone of which you can kind of send out different contracts. You can level up your kind of scav hideout version whereby you redeem different contracts. You can get different missions that will give you rewards that maybe could be useful for you as a player. So instead of having just the scav case where you just get a random assortment of stuff, maybe you could have some form of kind of crafting, or not crafting, but you can send off these scavs on a mission that will either have a percentage chance of you actually successfully completing that mission and bringing you back gear, and that will kind of increase dependent on your level and also the level of that scav kind of zone. And of course, depending on what the actual item that you're searching for, sending off scavs to actually search for and how long that mission is could potentially be a cool idea that I think would be kind of nice to have in the hideout in a general sense, where, you know, you can send them off on a long voyage or whatever to try and locate different items, and you can say, right, okay, there are 20 different items that you can send them off to go and get. These items could be from anything. Not entirely sure what I would pick as those items, but they could be in varying different values, in varying different rarities or whatever, or they could just simply be something that is like a token for fence that you can use for some form of trade with fence as kind of a barter trade that's only available to people that have built the zone and leveled up the zone and that sort of thing. And obviously if you level it up, you get more benefits and you get more of those tokens, whatever it is, whether it's crafts or whether it's kind of getting items or whether it's just being able to get some form of token like we see with the ref and the GP coins as they've currently done now. I think that could be a really cool idea for giving you something extra to do and sending off scavs on maybe, you know, it could be anywhere from 3 hours all the way up to, you know, 7 days or something like that. And it could be something cool to invest your time in, and you can only send off one party at a time, and maybe as you level it up you can send off maybe 2, and this could be something that I feel like would be kind of cool to have in the game. I'd be interested to see whether you think that would be a good idea or whether you think it's a terrible one and there's some blatant reason why that wouldn't be a good idea to kind of add into the hideout. But I think that would be kind of cool. And so that's what this video is primarily about, is just opening up the discussion, I guess, about what you guys and me personally would actually like to see in the game. And of course, hopefully BSG will listen to some of the stuff that we're putting forward, whether that be in its entirety or some of the things that could be cool to see in the future, and maybe they'll be already working on some of this sort of stuff. But yeah, it was a cool idea that I thought might make into an interesting video, and a bit of a weird one compared to what we usually do on the channel. But either way, I thought it was important because at the end of the day, you know, if we don't talk about the future of the game, maybe we don't have an input. And if we don't have an input, BSG will do what they want to do. And yeah, so I think it's important for us to do that. The third thing that I wanted to talk about as well is the addition of permanent challenges. Now we have dailies, we've got weeklies, we've got tasks, but of course tasks are permanent, but you can only really work towards one task. And there is a quest chain that you have to do, and in that quest chain you get end goal rewards, but there isn't particularly any kind of rewards that are given to people who have completed achievements other than cosmetic items, which I think is cool, but it would be nicer to see some form of, I guess, a cosmetic or reward that you can display in your trophy case for completing a whole lot of actual achievements throughout the game, or challenges that might come up when you come to the end game, because the end game at the moment in, for example, PvE is going to be where you've fully upgraded everything, you've completed all the quests, and you've got Kappa, you've got all of these things, but once you've done all of that, it becomes then just a either money farming simulator, or you're just simply playing for the sake of playing, and when you're playing up against AI, there's not really anything to work towards. And so that is kind of my issue with regards to the long-term health of PvE, or one of them, but of course this would work in PvP as well. So whether you play PvE or PvP, the challenges would be cool as like a permanent system, whether they're actually a kind of spanning over the wipe, so they're always on your character. I think this would be a great little addition that you can do, and kind of work into maybe the prestige system, which Tarkov did kind of give an indication that they are working on for PvE. And whereby you could wipe your character, get some form of bonus or some form of cosmetic that tells everyone, well, you've actually played this game and you've kind of reset your character, you're doing everything again, and that sort of thing, I think is cool. So having this additional system whereby you complete a variety of different tasks, whether that be prestiging 5-10 times or whatever, or whether it's taking out 10,000 scavs as a personal player on your account, I think that would be cool. Whether that's combining both PvE and PvP together into one as like a total achievement system, where it doesn't matter what game mode you play. I think that this sort of thing gives some players that have kind of reached the kind of burnout stage, which always happens late in the wipe, something else to work towards. And especially if you make those tasks really novel and unique, like, I don't know, eliminating 3 people with a nade, or this sort of stuff, or being able to extract with a base value or a barter value of X amount of money, or this sort of thing, just doing that sort of stuff that gives you some form of cosmetic, and you can display it in your trophy case or your Hall of Fame. Yeah, I think it would be something like a nice additional extra that people can work towards and keep people playing the game in the long term, if they do want to play the game. Obviously people can either choose to do it or choose not to do it, but it gives another little reason for people to work towards something, which I think is undervalued in a lot of games, especially ones that we've seen in the past, where they were literally just, here's the game, and that is the only thing you can do. You can just play the game, but it's always nice to have the option to work towards something, and it definitely hooks more players into playing and completing those achievements, and I think that would be valuable for Tarkov, because at the end of the day, once you've completed everything, you have nothing left, except from just trying out and testing and playing how you want to play, which in its entirety is fine, but a lot of people would just leave at that point. But either way, this video wasn't particularly supposed to be about the grand plan of Tarkov and what's going to happen in 10 years' time. but just to give some kind of ideas that I thought may or may not be good, and get your responses and what you would like to see in the game. I'm sure you can come up with way better ideas than I can come up with, which is why I wanted to see this video. I like seeing what people have in the game and what they want to see, and yeah, having a good conversation. So I'm looking forward to seeing your comments in the comment section down below, and I appreciate your time for watching this video. If you want to see some more Tarkov, you know what to do, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.